You want to know the most powerful thing you can add to your life that results in humor? Nope, it's not making a joke. Want to know how to endear yourself to most folks? If you think I'm going to say just be yourself, I'm not. Stick around because today I'm going to tell you how authenticity can do a lot of the heavy lifting when you're trying to inject humor into your life, your writing, performing, conversations, interviews, all of that. And I will tell you how authenticity is different than just being yourself. I'll explain in more detail in just a couple of minutes, but first let's watch this 4-second intro. Hey friends, thank you so much for dropping by today. I want to clear up a couple of things about which I have been challenged in my teaching of the draft method and spell out how authenticity, the A in the draft method, can add humor and does not always mean be yourself. I think some things are going to surprise you along the way. I find when I'm doing punch up on a piece of writing, I get to a point in a paragraph where I'll say, you need some humor here. And my client will often say, I'm not funny, or I don't know how to tell a joke. Well, I don't either. If you can tell a joke, then by all means use that gift. But you don't need that talent to add funny to your writing or your conversations or your thoughts, for that matter. Being authentic will almost always disarm someone enough that they are willing and sometimes eager to find whatever you are saying both charming and humorous. And this isn't just, a theory of Alex's. It's a for real thing. In psychology, it's called social connection theory. Authenticity signals trustworthiness. When someone is real with us, our brains release oxytocin, which is called the bonding hormone. We feel closer to that person. Humor is deeply social, so this emotional closeness makes people more likely to laugh. Stick with me. I'll show you examples in a minute, but maybe now is a good time to like and subscribe, because if you haven't noticed, I have a lot to say. I'm trying to build a community of folks who can help each other up their game. So, clickety-click. And thank you. Okay, let's get into it. In order to be authentic for humor, you can be self-deprecating, which is my go-to move. But many of my clients refuse to do that. It makes them feel embarrassed and exposed. And in those instances, what I suggest is this. Choose not to feel shame about your foibles and instead find affection for them. I'm not talking about your wrongdoings. That's a different thing. That's somebody else's video. I'm talking about what you consider your flaws. If you find affection for your flaws, it's likely others will find affection for them as well. No need to be defensive or arrogant or dismissive. Just find affection for that part of you that isn't perfect, and the chances are others will follow suit about you and about themselves. Because most of us know we aren't perfect, and we're looking for our tribe who knows the same thing about themselves, but don't hate themselves for falling short of perfection. There is a great deal of power in owning your stuff. Now, before I share the difference between authenticity and being yourself, I want to share an example of someone finding affection for their flaws. This fabulous woman, Michelle, did an essay at one of my shows. The prompt word was time. I worked with her on this essay, and she nailed it. The name of her piece is Pushy Broad, which already tells you she's going to come clean about some stuff. She is authentic throughout this piece, which means she shows us where we are meant to laugh. She leads us, and you can do that too. Let's take a look at an example of her doing this.
Now, I know it's hard to tell by looking at me that I ever lived in Berkeley, but I did. I am a psychotherapist and an addiction specialist, which never ceases to surprise everyone I tell.
Michelle clearly knows she may not be everyone's cup of tea, and she is not only fine with that, but she almost revels in it. If you think she's too over the top, she just recognizes it, and in a fashion she says, you're right, I am over the top. Isn't it great? And in doing that, she allows and encourages everyone listening or conversing with her to do the same for themselves. In addition to giving those of us experiencing her permission to be different and off the beaten path and possibly bordering on socially subpar, she's also getting laughs. And getting laughs is the goal of this tutorial. Because she is exhibiting affection for her differences, she virtually instructs us to do the same with her differences. And we then find them and her amusing. So we laugh. Or we smile. Remember, a smile is as good as a laugh when looking to add humor to your life. We laughed at her foibles. Or they did. Did you? If you didn't laugh, did you smile? And if you didn't laugh or smile, did you understand why they did? I'd love to know. Feel free to comment below. By the end of this video, I'll show you exactly how to apply this kind of authentic approach to your own unique personality, even if you don't think you have a funny bone in your body. But first, let's look at more examples. Here we go.
Richard, one of the guys on the panel, was really angry. And he insisted proudly that he had contracted the disease by sleeping with prostitutes. He felt sure that once he made it clear that he didn't wave a rainbow flag, people would realize that he did not deserve this disease. And several days later, I got a call from the clinical director with the name of my first client, and I was so right. It was Richard. Like a professional and a true compassionate woman, I said, no. There's no way I'm gonna do it. He's rude, he's angry, he's a sexist pig. Here I had volunteered my services, but I was refusing to see the first client that had been referred to me. Like a true compassionate person that I am, an angel, really. I would agree to see him only in order to determine if we could work together, nothing more. I wasn't going to commit to someone I couldn't help, and I couldn't help him if every time he opened his mouth, I wanted to stuff duct tape in it and string him up by his.
Now, I know Michelle, and she is not afraid to call something out that she thinks is wrong. She has the soul of an activist. And activists are not commonly thought of as the fun, funny person you want to invite to a party. But Michelle chooses authenticity. Her authenticity softens rough edges, and instead of seeing her as someone who might challenge us, we see her humor. Now, when someone tells you or me or us just to be yourself, many of us choke on that because what does that mean? It's so nebulous. We're all so many different things. Sometimes some of our things are at odds with the other things. Michelle presented herself as a compassionate person who had no interest in helping someone she considered toxic. Both are true things, both are who she is, and they were at odds with one another. So how can she just be herself? She can only be one side of herself at a time. I'm a person who strives to be light and funny in my daily life, but I am someone who is crushingly earnest, in case you hadn't noticed, because I hadn't made you aware. I wish I were that person whose first reaction to anything is to see what's funny about it. But I am often reactionary, which stands in direct opposition to the whimsical person I want to be and the person I am at gatherings or on stage. Both of those things are true. Both of those things are me being myself. But I can only be one of those things at a time. So what does that mean? Be yourself. That is not advice I understand, and it's not advice I would offer. Besides, we don't actually want to be ourselves in most situations. We want to be the best version of ourselves. The problem with that is we can't divorce ourselves from our shortcomings. They are with us at all times. Instead, we can be authentic. Authenticity cuts through pretense, expectations, social niceties. When someone says the true, unpolished thing that everyone is thinking but not saying, not the cruel thing, just the unpolished thing, the tension breaks, and laughter often follows. That release, that's the funny. If you can find humor in your bumps and cracks, those around you will do the same. Remember, humor helps, humor heightens, and humor is everywhere. I'm going to share another example, and this is from one of my recent performances. The name of the piece was Poser, which in the 90s meant wannabe or faker or, hanger-on. So you already know I'm going to expose a small peek of my underbelly. Let's see what I do with it, and then let's talk about it.
I call this Poser. And the reason I call it that is because my story is about being cool, which I was not. My singular focus in my teen years and my early 20s was that I just wanted to be cool, you guys. I figured if I could somehow work that out, everything else would just fall into place. And when I went to the college at the University of Tennessee, go Volunteers, Big Orange Crush. The kids who drank beer and wore ripped jeans and Converse tennis shoes who went to see Red Hot Chili Peppers, U2, and Hoodoo Guru were the best. They were the funniest and the most irreverent and the most rebellious and questioning of authority. They were everything I wanted to be. So I shaved the side of my head. I wore a lot of vintage dresses and rhinestones and ripped tights and Doc Martens, and I went to a lot of clubs that played a lot of rock and roll. And the moment I thought I had reached my coolness pinnacle was the night I invited the band The Circle Jerks and their entourage back to the apartment I shared with two other people. One of whom was not pleased when the police were called and the party was disbanded, but I was. Because I had earned my cool stripes. I moved to Los Angeles, where I got a job at a super hip restaurant on Melrose Avenue around 2 a.m. when all the bars were closed and the clubs were closed and the concerts were over. It would just be overrun with various rock stars. And that is when I quickly learned that I was not only cool, but I wasn't even cool adjacent.
I don't know if you can tell, but at the top of the piece, the audience didn't quite know what to do with me. By the end, they were absolutely on my train and in support and laughing in all the right places.
Here's what I learned. You will never be cool as long as you give a if anybody thinks you're cool.
There's a reason that feels counterintuitive but isn't. as to why starting uncomfortably often works better than trying to win everyone over immediately. It's something I discovered by trial and error, and it's something I will discuss at length in the F episode where I discuss fallibility. So be sure to come back next week for that. But in terms of authenticity, starting in a way that verges on awkward is something everyone in the audience recognizes and can relate to. That's something you have in common, and it bonds you. At no point did I think those people were judging me harshly. I felt like they were rooting for me to overcome. And that feeling of being invested in your overcoming will quickly have folks smiling and ready to laugh at the slightest indication that you want them to laugh, because they're rooting for you. Okay, I want you to try something. In just a second, I want you to pause this video, and I want you to think of a flaw that you normally try to hide from others. Okay, you got it? Okay, I'm going to show you how that exact trait could become your secret comedic weapon by showing you this example. I asked my friend Maddie to do this. By the way, she's a storyboard artist, and I will link her page below. She said that she has a bad memory, and sometimes it makes her appear like a ditz. It embarrasses her. So what she did was she turned it into humor. She now says her brain is like a Rubik's Cube. In a text, she will sometimes just send this image when she has fumbled something. As a result, the folks with whom she interacts not only don't get frustrated, but they chuckle. They get the reference. It endears them, which we talked about last week, and she's turned her flaw into humor, which endears her even further to coworkers, friends, people she's meeting for the first time. She just owns it. Authenticity creates relatability. If you admit something weird or raw or personally shameful and you own it, people often laugh not at you, but with the shared recognition of, oh my God, me too. Here's a quick final example of that being done with ease and with perfection. Let's take a look.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a terrible person.
Yeah. I honestly
not a
think
good
that's why we
person.
get along so well.
I'm not a good person.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna punch you in the face,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna go out of my way to make you feel good. Like, that's the tea.
Okay, the next time someone tells you to just be yourself, you can't choose which of yourselves to be, just hear my voice and remember, find affection for all the different yous that you are and own it, and enjoy the funny it brings. Does that sound hard? Because all you're doing is nothing. You're not trying to be on your best behavior, or be perfect, or hide anything, or try to impress anybody. You're just allowing yourself to be your yous, and you're finding affection for everything that falls short of perfection. It's actually pretty simple, and you're going to find it takes a load off. Okay, come back next week, and let's talk about the F word. Fallibility, y'all. Get your head in the game. This is the part where I thank you for dropping by. Thanks for staying to the end. You know what I'm going to say. You done dang good. All good actors spit, that's what I've heard. What's his name did it? King? The cutie patootie who played the king? He's a spitter.